Alrighty, and we are live. How's it going, Mets and overall baseball fans? Thank you guys all so much for chiming in for the latest post-game show here on WardyNYM. I know many of you, including myself right now, are probably watching the semifinals for the World Baseball Classic between Mexico and Japan. It's a big game for everyone that cares about the WBC too. So this is certainly not going to be a long show tonight, especially as the Metropolitans falter with Justin Verlander on the bump today by a final score of 3-2 to the Washington Nationals there in West Palm. The game wasn't televised, unfortunately, so we really weren't able to watch it. I was just listening to the radio call and getting the highlights while I could for this one, but I'm going to be breaking down all the nitty and gritty, what transpired in this ball game, which again wasn't a lot. Justin Verlander, how did he look? What was the reason for him not necessarily having the sharpest outing besides it being spring training? Who stood out, if at all? And what are we looking ahead for the Mets here with some key updates that we have from the left that we'll be going over? And that, again, we're getting really close now to opening day. So just going over all the latest in Mets land for people in the live chat. Appreciate everyone being in here. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe button. Greatly appreciate. For people on replay, make sure to let me know in the comments down below what is your biggest takeaway from this 3-2 loss. Again, the loss is the least of my concerns. All I want to know is how, again, the guys are expected to crack this Mets roster or competing for this Mets roster rather looked in this spring game. And again, we haven't covered the past couple of games besides some quick recaps. Hope everyone had a very happy holiday weekend for all that celebrated St. Patty's Day. But now let's get into it again. Appreciate every single one of you guys being here. Really does mean a lot. And I, of course, have to let you all know that today's show is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for all your sports betting needs. So make sure you head over to betonline.ag using promo code Bleav at BLEAV. That way you get yourself a 50% off welcome bonus. BetOnline is where the games begin. Folks, let's officially let the show begin because today JV was on the bump, and I had the privilege of seeing Justin Verlander right around a week ago pitch in Port St. Lucie, Florida. He looked really sharp when I saw him face his former team in the Astros. And one key thing to make of note as we were entering this game now was that Chris Chaos is here from Clover. Awesome, Chris. Happy to have you in here. Guys, just want to give a quick shout at Chris. If you guys don't know, he's an absolute stud. Works over there at Clover Park in Port St. Lucie for the Mets. Kindest guy you'll ever meet. You make sure you guys are attending not only a spring games, but any Port St. Lucie games this year and their minor leagues. Make sure to give Chris a hello. He will be in one of the stores there. Make sure to check him out. Chris, great guy. Had the privilege of building that relationship with him when I did my Port St. Lucie trip over the past week. So appreciate you in here for sure. But now let's get into it about this ball game. So Justin Verlander, his first 3 starts this spring, what did he have in common? Not surrendering a run. And what did he do today? He didn't give up 1, not 2, not 3, but a total of 6 runs. So the command certainly wasn't there with JV today, especially as we got into his final inning, which was in the 5th. However, only gave up 2 base knocks. It wasn't anything crazy. He looked fine today. Again, wasn't happy with his outing, but neither was he happy with his previous outing in which he had 8 strikeouts, only gave up 1 earned run, if not scoreless over 5 or 6 innings, however long it was. I mean, him and Max are such perfectionists, so even when they do pitch really sharp and spring, they're always going to critique it. But it was interesting, especially for what we saw there rather with Justin Verlander, because the walk rate was up today. We saw, again, not that I'm concerned about in the slightest. It's spring training. It is what it is. We're fully aware of that. However, what I will make note is a lot of Mets fans on social media, including myself, because I didn't realize this at first, we're making note on, if you watch, say, through the MLB app and you're tracking pitch by pitch, you would see that a lot of the pitches that Verlander was throwing were called balls when they should have been strikes. And that was something where it's like, okay, so he's not getting any calls along the zone. However, when you actually look through it, because of the fact that the game wasn't broadcast and there was no pitch cast, it's just randomly selected when those pitches are thrown. They weren't accurate if you're watching through the app today. So for anyone that was wondering if, say, the ump gave him no calls in the bottom of the zone, that actually wasn't true today. That was an app error from MLB, which has been happening in spring that we've noticed when these games aren't televised, because you can't even track the amount of pitches that they throw during this either, along with, if you're trying to say watch a stream, there's no stream available. There's only the radio call, which I'm sure was the case for most of you Mets fans that were listening to the game rather, and or chiming into the stream, probably wondering what the key highlights were. The highlights on the top right of the show, as you can see, were just what were brought up through social media that we were able to find. It is frustrating, too, how there was still a camera angle to capture the highlights today to post on SNY or wherever, but yet they still can't do a stream, a broadcast. I get it, spring training. I know it's a very niche audience, but for a diehard fan like me that covers the Mets for a living, and for a lot of diehards that watch the show like you guys, I'm sure you could appreciate just having a stream available, even if the camera angle isn't pretty, something is always better than nothing at the end of the day, right? So it's always a bummer when that happens. But again, good news is that we're 10 days away right now from the Mets throwing their first pitch of their first actual game this year against the Miami Marlins in Miami, 10 or 11 days away, I should say. So now let's get into the nitty gritty about this ball game, guys. So as we know, Justin Verlander, again, not a terrible day, not a great day either, but offensively, it starts there in the first inning. Starling Marte with a base knock and then a stolen base. And who drives him in? It's Tommy Pham. Tommy Pham with an RBI single. I feel like that's Tommy's first or second RBI this spring. The guy has not looked good at all this spring. I mean, let's keep it blunt. He has not defended well. He's been really behind on his pitches when I was there in person. I know that, again, he's tweaking. He's working on some things, but Pham has done anything but impress me. So at least he got that RBI base knock up the middle. Definitely doesn't hurt his chances. He's still expected to crack the bench for sure. But Timmy LaCastro has just been light years ahead of him, in my opinion, in his overall play. I understand it's spring, so it shouldn't get me too excited that, LaCastro is automatically going to be favored over Pham. But there is something to be said for LaCastro who's trying to crack a roster spot and really doing his best efforts to do so here in spring that we've seen thus far. No less, the first run of the day is brought in by the Mets in the first. And as we head to the bottom of the first, Corey Dickerson with an RBI double. JV had two guys on base still, but stranded them to end the inning. So after one, Mets Nationals were tied 1-1 in this ball game. As we get to the second, Mark Vientos with a double. And why did I highlight Mark Vientos especially today? Marky V has done nothing but impress me this spring, has been far superior than what I even expected. And I understand it's spring, but Vientos is a guy competing for a roster spot. So my question to everyone here in the chat, watching live or people in comments on replay is, we know that Brett Baty should be a lock to crack this Mets roster. If he doesn't, it'll be asinine, in my opinion, truly, because I do believe that he deserves to start as a Mets third baseman, have Escobar at DH, or just get creative and have them kind of bounce back and forth, that type thing. But Baty, even if he's not, say, starting every day, I think it's safe to say with how well of a spring he's had, he's warranted of cracking this roster. And Mark Vientos, I mean, give me one reason why Mark Vientos shouldn't be on this Mets roster potentially over a Darren Ruff, for instance, aside from the fact that Vientos is still young. Spring only means so much that we're aware of. Ruff is still a veteran. Aside from that, Vientos is more athletic than Ruff. I mean, Vientos has actually looked okay at third. Past couple days he's been there. Had some nice plays. At first, he's fine too. So while I understand that's probably a tall task to see Vientos and Baty both on this Mets roster, it's something that I certainly would be in favor for. I'm curious to see what you guys think. Bobby says, I never saw an active chat like this one. Yeah, this is what happens when you only score 2 runs in a spring training game under 2 weeks away from opening day. I honestly wasn't even going to cover the game, but I already had committed to it ahead of time. So there's not most, but plenty of spring losses we haven't covered because, people only care so much about spring training. But given the fact that I stayed committed to this, I want to make sure that we cover this game, even with the game not even being broadcasted, trying to stay as consistent as I can for you guys. So Bobby G, I appreciate you being in the chat, no less. But anyways, so we get Vientos there with a double. Nothing else happens there in the second inning. In the bottom of the second, though, Justin Verlander with a 1-2-3 inning there. That's definitely doesn't hurt at all. Third inning, Francisco Lindor back with the Mets. Not only him, but Omar Narvaez and Eduardo Escobar all in the starting lineup today. Lindor with a base knock in the third. Nothing happened offensively. In the fourth, Narvaez with a single. Nothing happened offensively. And the fifth, Justin Verlander walks the bases loaded, has 2 outs, but does walk in a run. And I want to say Corey Dickerson was the batter he walked in. Don't quote me on that, but I do believe that was the case. And JV's day would be done after 4.2 innings pitched of 2-run ball, 6 walks, 3 strikeouts, and I don't even know how many pitches he threw because they don't even document that when the game isn't broadcasted like it was today, which is annoying. But again, it is what it is. So JV, now with a terrible day, still looking sharp aside from the walk rate. David Pearson, for example, has looked really sharp thus far in spring. 12 scoreless innings, but does have 8 walks. So if there's anything that you could critique about the Mets starting pitchers so far that we've seen in spring, I mean, as of late, they've looked really sharp for the most part. Just got to get that walk rate down. But again, that is what spring training is for, especially when guys like Peterson, like the McGills, etc., are really working on their stuff. That's far more understandable. I mean, Mad Max had 7 squirrels the other day, too. Would only think 1 walk, 7 strikeouts, just an absolute madman. He's locked and loaded, ready for the season, too. But no less, we get to the 5th inning then that we saw JV happen there. Muckenhern comes in, gets the final out, and that is that. In the 6th, Dennis Santana. Keep an eye on this guy, folks. We did a video on the channel the other day, has almost 10,000 views, which is baffling to me for a waiver claim. But again, it is baseball season. I appreciate that. So Dennis Santana, the flamethrowing right-hander, picked up off waivers from the Minnesota Twins, was in the Braves organization for a little bit too, was with the Rangers last year, 5-year ERA, but a sub-4 expected ERA, has some nasty stuff, high velo, touching 99 and 100 on the gun even. He had himself a 1-2-3 inning for his Mets debut today. Santana, who was a late pickup, a guy that's trying to crack this Mets bullpen by the time the season begins, because if he doesn't have any more minor league options left, because he'll either be sent through waivers, will either be picked up in waivers or could potentially elect free agency to go elsewhere. So a lot to like about Santana and his arsenal. I really do like his advanced numbers. His walk rate's around over 4 walks per 9, but so was David Robertson last year. So was Ottavino last year heading into the Mets season, first year with the Mets. So nothing that Jeremy Hefner and Eric Yagers can't work with, and that's definitely important. But I will say this about Dennis Santana, definitely has the stuff for sure, the flamethrowing ability. So did Sam Coonrod up until his recent injury. Now that'll unfortunately have him not cracking this Mets bullpen because of it. Again, it's unfortunate. Sam Coonrod, I really liked him in spring. Just injuries happen. We've seen that with Brooks Raley too. And a key update on Raley is with his hamstring injury, he is likely going to pitch at least one more Grapefruit League game this spring, and then he should be ready to go for the start of the season. And some other key health updates while we're on the topic for those that aren't aware. Brandon Nimmo is week to week with an ankle knee sprain after jamming what it looks like, a bad slide into second base on St. Patty's Day. Thankfully, no structural damage. It looks like he's going to be ready to go for the regular season and feels confident that he will even be ready for opening day. So very happy to hear that on the front, of course, Brandon Nimmo. And Jose Quintana did have the other day perfectly fine, clean surgery on his lesion, took some bone out actually from his leg, I Bleav, to get in there for that rib where he had the lesion, and he's already healing up. And again, wishing him a very healthy and speedy recovery. So happy that was taken care of when it was right away. And I do Bleav Diaz had his procedure as well. So wishing all these guys speedy recoveries. It sucks that the Mets aren't going to have them for extensive period of time. With Diaz, obviously the elephant in the room, but Quintana as well for at least the first half of the season. But no less, it's important for these guys to get healthy and be effective for the Mets when they're physically able to get back out there. And Nemo should be ready to go for the season, which is huge for this Mets team. Anyways, we get to the 7th inning. John Curtis today didn't have a great outing, but again, John Curtis still, I've been very happy with the spring. He's a lock to crack this Mets bullpen. If it wasn't obvious by now, I would be shocked if he doesn't crack this Mets bullpen. 0.2 innings pitch, gave up 1 earned run on 1 hit, 2 walks, 1 strikeout, 2.7 ERA this spring. Overall, Curtis has looked sharp this spring, and I do expect him to crack this Mets bullpen with how everything has been going. We then get to the 8th inning. Drew Smith, who looked phenomenal today, struck out the side in his 1 inning of relief. Has right around a 1.5 ERA this spring. Not that it really means anything, but Drew Smith, a guy that, again, has struggled with his health in recent years, struggled with consistency. We've seen flashes of brilliance from him, but nothing too consistent. This could be a very big year for Drew Smith with the assumption that he's in this Mets bullpen, which we all pretty much expect by now, and hopefully get some more reps in. I mean, if we could get Drew Smith with potentially 60-plus innings under his belt this year of effective baseball, that would be great. Just got to stay healthy and work on that command for sure, not throwing meatballs right down the plate that we saw when he was going through his struggles last season. Then we get to the 9th. Aruz, who is a prospect, or minor leaguer rather, for the Mets, ripped himself a double. Peraza with an RBI single to make it a 1-run ball game. But no less, the Mets would still falter by a final score of 3-2 in this matchup. And again, the loss means very little to me. I understand that there's not a lot of people that have interest in games like this, especially after a loss. But, we're getting closer and closer to regular season baseball, and I hope you guys enjoy this taste further of what post-game shows are going to be like this year. The only difference is going to be during the regular season is obviously the chat is going to be popping. Whether the Mets win or lose, it's going to be hectic. We're going to have a lot of interactions in the live chat during the live streams and for the comments on replay. We're going to be having special guests, hopefully as much as weekly, for at least one or multiple post-game shows throughout our weekly routine of covering basically every Mets game that we possibly can. And of course, just going to have a lot of excitement. It's going to be a great season covering this Mets team, and I can't wait. I feel like we're just under 2 weeks away, so I'm chomping at the bit. I'm tired of spring training now. I had so much fun when I was physically in attendance for spring training, but now I'm over it, just like a lot of you Mets fans, and I just want the season to get rolling, just like many of you guys do, I'm sure. So let me get to some of your comments, and I'll discuss a little bit further on the latest updates for the Mets, and then we'll get out of here. Again, not going to be a long show today. Literally don't care at all, honestly, about viewership or anything like that with these spring games. I'm just happy to interact with you Mets fans that go out of your way to watch this during spring. You guys are troopers. I appreciate it. But Warriors top 5, just want to briefly touch on Tommy Pham 1 for 3 today with an RBI. Mark Vientos, who leads the Mets with 11 RBIs this spring. Again, another reason why, this guy very well could crack this Mets roster. But if he does, him and Beatty, then you have to sacrifice one less reliever in the pen, which is an argument as to why the Mets wouldn't do that. So either way, Mets have hard decisions, but good decisions to make soon on their bench. 1 for 3 with the double. Drew Smith with the scoreless inning, striking out the side is my 3rd star. Dennis Santana, my 4th star in his Mets debut with a strikeout scoreless inning in the 6th. And Justin Verlander is my number 5 star. Again, wasn't bad at all. My goodness. But again, depending on what Mets Twitter you talk to, he's washed. He's the worst thing imaginable, if you couldn't tell by now. So that's just how social media tends to work. But let me get you some of your comments here real quick. Carson says, Escobar getting bodied by Patrick Corbin and Beatty, getting to the ball faster than ever. Like, this is just stupid at this point. I mean, look, Escobar is going to be an effective player for the Mets this year. I don't think that's something that people should argue. He will be. He's not going to be Mr. September all year. He's going to go through his ebbs and flows, and Eddie will continue to regress, I feel like. But if he's able to embrace it, I really think Escobar in a more limited utility role could do best for him. Again, if he can handle that, adjust to that, fine. We love the personality about Escobar. He's like the captain on the team in the sense of humor and just bringing excitement and being that jovial type guy. He's awesome. But if you can have Eddie as, splitting time at DH, even sometimes getting reps in left field like he did for Team Venezuela, by all means, do it to make sure that Brett Beatty's on this roster to start the year, because Beatty has done nothing but prove himself exactly what I expected and predicted heading into the year. You guys have watched previous videos. I hyped up Beatty. I said, watch out. He's going to dominate this spring. He's going to play his way into a starting role on this roster. And everything to this point will lead you to believe that that is exactly what is going to happen. I mean, it would still baffle me if Beatty didn't crack this roster. He's batting .340 this spring, over 1,000 OPS, I'm sure still, or close to rather. But he really has done all he can do to this point. And his defense has looked better as spring has gone on. He's made some really nice throws, hard, accurate throws there from third base, even doing a little spinoramas, one-legged throws on the hop. I mean, he's looking good. And I want Brady on this roster. I really do. Bobby, appreciate the kind words. Thank you. Mostly because I couldn't see the game. So thank you, Wardy, for the play-by-play. I appreciate that, Patty. Thank you so much for chiming in. Great member. Let's see. Seed says, hey, I watch a ton of vids and never cut a stream. Thanks for the vids. Oh, you're welcome, Seed. Appreciate you chiming in. 6 walks. Yeah, oof. Yeah, again, the walks were definitely not in JV's favor today, but it's spring trading, so I'm not going to worry about 1 second. Dardar Banks notes this, and I 100% agree. Love the fact that Uncle Steve got Edwin Diaz, nutritionist, chef, and physical therapist. This will definitely attract more free agents for us. Love the fact that our organization isn't toxic. Yes, this is not the Wilpon era Mets, to say the least. The fact that Cohen is giving him like first-class type treatment, rather, at his home, healing up from his of course, knee surgery is great. Shows you just how much Cohen cares about his investments. And I mean investments in a way of not like, oh, okay, it's an investment, I don't care about the player. Investment because you're investing in the player and you truly do care for them as a human being. He has shown that tenfold. I mean, Nimmo has spoken glowingly of it, which went in hand with why Nimmo personally didn't want to partake in the WBC this year, because one, we know that Nimmo hurt his hamstring when he played for Italy back in 2017, and two, Nimmo is really highlighted, that he knows how much effort and dollars Cohen has put into this team, and he wants to do everything that he physically could do to make sure that, injuries wouldn't happen, even though, of course, he got injured in spring, because that's just, unfortunately, Nimmo's luck. Thankfully, it's nothing serious on that front, not to get on a tangent. Cohen is a breath of fresh air. Yes, that's an understatement, say the least. And how about Alvarez? Yeah, Alvarez didn't do anything today. Unfortunately for Francisco Alvarez, I think he went into spring a little bit, pressing. You can watch his at-bats, pressing a little bit. Hasn't really done anything to wow you. His defense has been okay. Has had some sharp games defensively. When he first started defensively, he wasn't great, but he's gotten better as the time has gone on. I think Alvarez is kind of aware that he's not starting the year with the Mets. Not to say that he's purposely playing bad for that reason, but Francisco Alvarez, the Mets' top prospect and arguably the best prospect in baseball, has been the least impressive of that core three of him, Vientos, Beatty, or core four rather, with Mauricio. So Alvarez is certainly going to start the year in AAA, and at some point he will be with the Mets this year, and hopefully makes an impact because we know hitting wise, Tomas Nido, who's had a strong spring, Nido doesn't have the offensive potential nearly what Alvarez has. Same thing with Narvaez. These guys will still be defensively dominant type catchers. So Alvarez will certainly play his way into the Mets roster this year. It's a matter of when. And again, you can tell that he is certainly not going to be starting the year with the Mets, and that's fine. It is what it is, right? You bring in Narvaez for this exact reason, to make sure that you don't feel like you need to rush up the kid. Randall playing and possessed, dear Lord. I need to turn back on the Knicks game, so I'm happy you said that, Carson, because the Knicks didn't have a great first half, ended on a strong foot, and I guess Randall is doing his Randall stuff. So for all my Knicks fans out there, you got to be happy about that. I'd be lying if I said I didn't have some key bets thanks to Bet Online on that Knicks game too. So hopefully everything works out on that front. And again, we are going to be wrapping things up in just a couple minutes here, but my final thoughts are Mauricio and Joey Lucchesi were sent down to AAA the other day. I'm sorry for the Mauricio stands out there that were so confident that he was making the roster. I don't know why you didn't listen to me when I told you straight up that that wasn't going to happen. I love Mauricio. I have his signature on one of my hats. I got a photo with him. Really nice guy. Watch his BP in spring. Watch him hit a home run right over my head, 450 feet to right field. I mean, what is in there not to like about Mauricio? But, you know, the guy hasn't played past AA. It wasn't going to happen. So he starts the year in AAA. And Mauricio, like Alvarez, is a guy that very well could play his way into making his debut, or I just gain at minimum a cup of coffee, a taste with the Mets this year, depending on how their offense goes, depending on injuries that inevitably happen, depending on what trades they do or lack thereof by the trade deadline. So Mauricio will definitely be a guy that will be fun to watch this year. It's also great too that MLB will be, broadcasting minor league games this year, so that way you have further incentive to watch the Syracuse Mets this year, headlined by Ronnie Mauricio and potentially Vientos too. Again, if Beatty doesn't make this damn roster, I will say too many things that won't be good. So it'll be fun to watch Syracuse this year for sure. And overall, Joe Lucchesi too just needs to get more reps in. I mean, the guy hasn't pitched a lot since coming back from Tommy John. I'm not shocked that he isn't making this team, because if he makes a team, if he gets caught up at any point from injuries or just wanting more depth, he'll likely be a reliever or a guy that spot starts for a couple innings. Love Joey Fuego. Shout out to his mom, Michelle, a good friend of mine over social media. He just needs to work on his arsenal a little bit more. Got rocked quite a bit here in spring, working on his stuff, and that's fine. Mets still have the pitching depth where they can afford to not have to bank on Lucchesi being anything more than potentially a long reliever for them this year. So we'll see how things go on his front. Abraham Almonte was sent to minor league camp as well, had a solid spring, but it wasn't ever going to make the team. DJ Stewart will likely be a part of those next round of cuts. It'll just be the matter of, will it be DJ Stewart and Tim LeCastro? Does LeCastro actually have a realistic shot of cracking this roster? Tommy Pham, Darren Ruff, where their stats is, are they 100% a lock to be on this team? Pham, I would probably say yes still, but Ruff is that guy where, I feel like he shouldn't be a lock. I really feel that way, but again, we'll see how things go as we get to the final cuts or two before the regular season begins at the end of March. So Mets fans, with that being said, that's going to wrap up the show. Thank you guys all so much for watching. If you enjoy consistent post-game shows and consistent Mets content, this is surely the place to be. We're the #1 post-game show on YouTube covering the Metropolitans. Easily over 100 post-game shows coming your way this year, per usual. I want to thank you all for your endless support and for watching live or on replay. And also stay tuned. Bleav in Queen's newest episode will be dropping tomorrow, and we will have that out in audio format. I meant to have the audio format out for my last live stream on Edwin Diaz, but that ended up not being the case. So for people that want to hear Joe and Rex's opinion on Diaz and what it means for the Mets going forward, you will hear that tomorrow night. We're also going to talk some fantasy baseball too, as Rex is getting ready to do his fantasy baseball draft. So if you guys are interested in that, we'll be chopping up. It'll just be a fun baseball discussion tomorrow, going over all the latest in spring and fantasy baseball as a whole, because again, it's not like we have significant series to cover just yet, as we are just under 2 weeks away from opening day. So again, thank you guys so much for watching, listening. Really appreciate you all. No Mets game tomorrow, so look for the Bleav in Queens podcast live tomorrow night, probably around 8 p.m. Eastern time if I had to guess. And until then, have a great one, folks. And as always, let's go Mets. Peace out, everybody. Have a great one.